In the old school, it was all about grit your teeth and get on with it. You know, you got a bit of the blues, okay, well, get on with it. Don't focus on that. Look on the bright side of life. Time passes on. We now have political correctness, which a lot of old people try to shit on and say, oh, that's really not in key with how we used to deal with things. But it's just attempting to right the wrongs of the past. And, you can't be too dismissive of that. Thing is, though, a lot of athletes, a lot of actors, a lot of entertainers, people in the public eye are coming out talking about mental health issues. Clark Carlisle, he used to be chairman of the Professional Footballers Association, I believe, the PFA. He spoke about it. He's had his issues. He's tried to commit suicide. And he done a program on it. He spoke to a lot of footballers, and yeah, it's a problem. It is an issue. And you can only imagine how bad it is in boxing. Now, I'm watching this interview with Josh Kelly, and I've cut it short. I'm going to go back to it. And he's speaking about mental health issues. He signed a new deal with Sky. Tyson Fury, he's aired his views and his experiences with mental illness. Boxing is different to football, though. And if this becomes an ongoing trend where boxers are discussing mental health, it's different to football. And I don't think no one's really realized. No one's clocked it. And what I'm saying is going to be hard. It's going to be cold, but it's going to be clinical and to the point. If you're going to bring up mental health in boxing, then the correlation between taking punches to the head affecting your moods and your neurological status, if you like, then there's not much of a middle ground where you can resolve and find a solution between taking punches and mental health issues. This isn't like, okay, some actor is talking about his mental health issues. Well, unless he or she is an extreme case, you can go see a therapist who can help you if you're struggling rehearsing your lines or having panic attacks when you go on stage. But the therapist cannot do anything for you if you're taking punches to your head. There's nothing they can do. It's not psychological, it's the physical imposing itself on the psychological. And once that's done, the damage is done. There is no middle ground. There's no areas in the middle that we can resolve this. You have to stop boxing. Because that's what happens. You get punched in your head hard and consistently enough, it's going to cause you problems in your everyday functioning of life. This isn't football. You could talk about heading a ball, you know what I mean? And any CTEs it might cause. But when you head a ball, you're in control of heading the ball. You're looking at the ball as it's coming. When you're boxing, you don't even see these shits coming at you. Bam! How much times do you see someone head a ball and end up on the canvas or staggering all around the place after they've headed the ball? Never. When Clark Carlisle was talking about his experiences and interviewing other footballers, the CTEs from heading a ball didn't even come up. And they had already done the study on the dangers of heading a ball years back. In fact, some schools have banned kids from heading a ball when they play football. Can't head the ball. It didn't come up. You know what came up? Gambling issues, money maintenance, dealing with the fame of being a footballer, the stress of losing games, the fear of losing, getting dropped from out of the team, no longer being relevant. Alcohol and other substances. I hate saying alcohol and drugs like alcohol ain't a drug. The fallout after you lose a game. This is what was coming up. Totally different from boxing. Totally different. All right, we're talking about mental health and psychological issues here. In boxing, you can see immediately after a boxer looks dejected after he's taken a beating, even a points decision, you can see the dejection, let alone when they've been knocked out or took a sustained beating and stopped. You can see the dejection. You can see the vacant look in the eyes. You can see all of it. You can see what the fighter's taking home with him in terms of baggage. There's no comparison. An extreme sport with extreme consequences. And the only way to resolve any issues or fallout from it will be extreme measures. Ask all these pro boxers, if they would let their sons box. They're going to stall. Some of them are going to say flat out, no. Why? Well, we know why. Ask him if he would let his son or his daughter play football or tennis at a basic level or an advanced level. Oh yeah, no problem at all. My son and my daughter take tennis lessons every day and play football every day. Why? Well, we know why. Josh Kelly is talking about, he's dealt with his issues and he's going to start afresh with his new deal at Sky. Dude, there's more than one David Avanesian in boxing, you know. There's enough bad man in boxing. They're practicing to put you in that deep depression. Maybe not directly, but that's what they're planning to do. Fighting is not just physical. You're trying to psychologically break somebody. Violence is often used as a second option when dialogue doesn't get you the results you want. All it's going to take for a boxer like Josh Kelly is another heavy defeat, some bad injuries, where he can't perform nowhere near to the standard that he was once used to. Struggle to get fights, struggle to get decent purses. All this, I'm going to start fresh honeymoon period with Sky. Well, when you start getting pissed off with them because they're doing things you don't want to do, and they start getting pissed off with you, sorry to say it, you're going to be right back there. And I'm not just saying Josh Kelly, I'm talking boxers in general now. Boxing is the ultimate grit your teeth and get on with it sport. There is no room for extensive therapy for severe mental illness. You either get out or get on with it. Now, Muhammad Ali, a lot is spoken about how much he did for people, and he did a lot. I'm just going to talk about the guy as a boxer. As a fighter, Muhammad Ali was just incredibly resilient. He had that ability to grit your teeth and just get on with it. You didn't hear Muhammad Ali bitching that Don King robbing his money, or Herbert Muhammad is taking his money, and that happened. They were ganking him big time. Muhammad Ali never moaned about that. Muhammad Ali flagshipped the sport like a trooper. He didn't complain when his motor skills were declining severely. He didn't complain on nothing. I mean, I got issues. They took my money. Nah. When's my next fight? Holmes! Cracking jokes. Muhammad Ali was all about the show must go on. And that's a dying breed of boxer. Really and truly, if I go to patronize your services, no matter what it is, should I really be hearing about your mental health issues? Or should you just be giving me the best service of what you're supposed to be specializing in? I didn't hear Sugar Ray Leonard when he was flagshipping the sport talking about all his issues. And he had issues. He was sexually abused when he was a kid. He was using cocaine, but who wasn't in the 80s? But he flagshipped the sport with a smile on his face. Now, I hope he did get whatever he needed to deal with some of them issues when he was a kid, counseling, therapy, or maybe he worked it out himself, or maybe he never has. But I hope he does have some peace of mind. Of course I do. You see, there's a lot about the mental health issue that seems to come up so much, which I'm not understanding. All these people talking, oh yeah, I had mental health issues. But I didn't see them in no institution, or I haven't heard about it. I grew up in a very densely black populated part of the country. 70s and 80s. And mental health was one of the biggest issues in our community. No one spoke about it because it had a stigma. And West Indian families, they don't deal with that stigmas. No, my picnic, I have no mental issues. Yes, he does. Yes, she does. A lot of people ended up in the system. Now, let me put you up on game. A lot of parents didn't think there was nothing wrong with their kids. Black parents. Their brothers and sisters would tell you the same thing. No, there was nothing wrong with them. They was misdiagnosed in the system. And later, around the time of the Macpherson inquiry with Stephen Lawrence's death, they found that the mental health profession, the police force, were institutionally racist. You know, a lot of kids and a lot of people were sent back to Jamaica when they were going through their issues. And you will hear stories, they were fine once they went back over there. Because a lot of times it might not have been blatant racism, but the temperaments, the Caribbean temperament, could be easily misdiagnosed by someone who is not accustomed to that community or that ethnicity. But all these celebrities, I'm not seeing them end up in the system. Frank Bruno, his issues got so bad he was sectioned off. And it wasn't voluntarily either. They came and got him. And he wasn't a threat to the public. He wasn't being violent. He wasn't begging money off the street. He wasn't threatening people. And they sectioned him off. Bruno never came out telling everybody, oh, I'm going through mental issues, man. You know what I mean? Like, fight the power. He never did all that shit. And I often wonder if that fucking piece of garbage newspaper we have over here, The Sun, were responsible for him getting locked up. Or at least partly responsible. When they were putting out headlines, Bonkers Bruno. Bonkers Bruno. What the fuck do you mean? And what was the other one they used to like? Wacko Jacko with Michael Jackson, because Mike Garn and I am Oxygen Chiamba or whatever he was doing. Them in their headlines. And the Bonkers headline was when Frank was finally sectioned. But building up to it, they were just chipping away. Yeah, Bruno's losing it. Bruno taking all types of drugs. He thinks he's Frankie Dettori. He's doing all these eccentric things and, you know, Frank's losing it. But Frank never came out and said anything was wrong with it. It was them. And I think a lot of the pressure, especially back then when papers were more relevant and more influential than what they are now, I think they contributed to him being sectioned off and him going through a lot of what he went through. Don't get me wrong, smoking skunk doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. And I'd advise any youngster listening to this video, if you're smoking skunk, put it down. Put it down. If you're going to smoke cannabis, now people can say, that's negative, but you're telling people to smoke. Nah, they're going to smoke it anyway. Smoke a lighter strain, more of a bush, regular type of cannabis. Don't go for no super skunk or super hydro. No, don't bother with that. You're just asking for trouble. I used to be a drug counselor. And let me tell you this now. I got into a spat with this white dude because, you see that advice I just dispensed about what to smoke or what not to smoke? He said, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. I said, dude, if you think you're going to tell kids that is zero tolerance, that, you know, just don't smoke at all and that's going to work, if you think that's practical, you're an idiot. And we debated and argued about it. The African guy, my boss, I spoke to him later about the discussion and he said, you're right. You are right. In the real world, you are right. But you can't dispense that advice to the clients who turn up. All this, we're trying to get them to stop. Yes, of course you're trying to get them to stop. But there's also methadone for heroin addicts, because getting them to stop is not always practical. You might have to aid them on how to smoke. Smoke a lighter strain, rather than something that's going to put you in Fran Barnett. You know, a lot of the weed that this generation is smoking probably has to be graded up from what it used to be graded. Frank Bruno, he was actually saying that. Come to think of it, he was saying the stuff he was smoking when he was going through what he was going through was way different to the stuff that he was smoking in the 70s when he'd go to the blues dance in South London, when ganja was ganja. You know what I mean? Or ganja, as the Cockneys call it. I remember a woman on BBC Radio London, because that's all I used to listen to when I was out driving. She got lightly reprimanded by the host of the program because she said the same thing I said. If you're going to smoke, she said, and she was in the industry. I don't know if she was a drug counselor into mental health. She said, yeah, if you're going to smoke, you can't smoke the modern day stuff. The stuff that people used to smoke in the 70s, she said, and the 80s, is a lot different to the current stuff that's out there. And this was around 2005, she was saying that. Having a brain and a mind, a big responsibility. Sounds weird to say that, but it is. It actually is. And a lot of kids have a lot of hang-ups, issues. When I discovered weed when I was young, it was like, wow. I realize now the term they use for what we was doing is self-medicating. And that's what it was. That's what it was. It's not a white, a black thing or a ghetto or suburban thing. It's a I want to feel good thing. I'm talking about when I was 14 and 15. I didn't have no permanent address. I was virtually homeless. Never slept on the street, but I was homeless. And I wouldn't say it was a struggle per se. I'm not going to go that far, you know. I didn't starve, not at all or anything like that. And, you know, but the weed was just there when I didn't have that structure in my life. It was just there. So now Josh Kelly, I've returned to the interview. He's saying he was having these mental health issues going into the fight with David Avanesian. You know, yeah, because David had a real easy life growing up in Russia. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not going to tell anybody that if you haven't been sectioned off for a period of time that your mental issues are not relevant. I'm not going to do that. But there has to be some barometer of what we're talking about. There's got to be levels. Like Tyson Fury. I'm seeing people, his sycophants, saying, yeah, I think he's the greatest. Why? Because I had anxiety issues just like Tyson, and he makes me feel better about myself. And they believe that this connection they feel they have with him makes him the best boxer ever. Now, Muhammad Ali exceeded boxing in terms of achievements, but all you have to do is look at the record and say, well, he's got the greatest heavyweight resume ever. He is one of the greatest ever. Tyson Fury, some of these fans who are saying he's the greatest are doing it based off they feel connected with him and his mental struggle. If you was to have a serious debate, if they knew anything about boxing, there's just no way you could say he's the greatest in what he's done with boxing. You just can't, unless you're a total idiot. Because if we're looking at the modern day era, if you're going to say Tyson Fury is the greatest ever, for whatever reasons you're saying it, this is your word. You're saying he's the greatest ever. Well, okay. That means Joshua must be the second greatest ever then. Let's take the mental illness out of it. Let's look at resumes. If you believe Tyson Fury's resume is better than Joshua, fair enough. How much better is it though? How much better is it? But they don't have that rationale. Tyson Fury fans are the most irrational people and are a bit of a joke, to be honest, if we're talking about knowledge of boxing. And it's funny, I was watching this program today with my mum. I didn't see what it was because I was flicking through the channels, and the guy, I think, he was doing some carpentry. And I think he could have had some issues, and I only flicked through it briefly, so I didn't hear what he was doing or anything like that. But I heard him say, it's like mental health is in vogue these days. So wow. Seriously, it's in vogue. Let me tell you this now. Britain, the media try and put a spin on it and try and hide it, but they had some horrific mental institutions back in the day. Not that long ago as well, talking 20th century. I'm certainly old enough to remember a time where you didn't want to get stigmatized because you had mental health issues. You really didn't. They treat you like you had AIDS. You think it's a joke? In the 50s, unmarried mothers would get sent to workhouses and their children into care. Women would be sent to special hostels and their babies would be adopted. A lot of them women got sectioned off. A lot of them. Oh yeah. I'm not talking about celebrities, but I'm just talking about regular people will actually try to accentuate their mental health to try and get benefits these days. Extra benefits or certain concessions. Wherever they can get out of the system. Yeah. Where I grew up, that stereotype that girls used to get pregnant to get flats, yeah, there was some truth to it. Let them try that in the 50s. You go talk to some older people, older than me, and they would tell you there's a lot of people who had mental issues, some of whom got sectioned, some didn't. And you'd never know it. You know why? They hid it. They had no choice. They hid it. They didn't publicize it and say, oh yeah, I've been sectioned off for the last 6 months, that's why you ain't seen me. No, they hid it. And no, I'm not telling anybody they should sweep it under the carpet and try and pretend that everything is all good. If everything isn't all good, then you shouldn't do that. I would tell you, however, though, don't just tell any and everybody what you're going through, because some people could use it against you in some way. There's a lot of fucked up people out there. You're there telling them that you've got these issues, and they got more issues than you. And this is, let me tell you something. One of the biggest issues we have is a lot of you are looking at other individuals and they appear to have it all worked out. They've got all the answers. Some of them talk an awfully good game as well. And some of them may be as confident as they appear to be. But I guarantee you, a lot of them are just putting on a front. It's all right for a celebrity who's making millions for themselves and others to come out and say that. But let's say you've been doing a blog documenting your mental health issues and a potential employee gets hold of it. You might not get that job. They might not be very sympathetic. Now, I'm not saying you should be ashamed of what's happened to you, but you can't just leave yourself that vulnerable to give everyone that information. Society, just like the war on drugs, can never get a grip on mental health issues. It is what it is. We are vulnerable. We are humans. We are what we are. And that's that. One of the ways we've dealt with these issues is by suppressing it. You know, you see your kids got the blues or, just not coping that well. Let's talk in the 30s, 40s or 50s. And come on, get up, put your clothes on, go to school and do this and do that. Suppress it. Try and suppress it. Now, a lot of modern media and those in the mental health profession are not going to acknowledge that a lot of times that worked. Just get on with it. It worked. And the ones who couldn't suppress it and ended up getting sectioned off, when people would ask, well, where's your kid or where's that family member? Oh, they've gone on holiday. They're living over there now. They'll be back soon or whatever. They're fine. Everything was keeping up appearances or attempting to. Don't do anything that's going to make people think, well, they're a bit odd. Don't draw unnecessary attention to yourself. Go to church. But, you know, kids test the patience of their parents, and youth culture is very powerful. You don't want to go ballroom dancing in the 50s like your parents, because that's boring. No, you want to go to the rock and roll dance. The church used to demonize rock and roll music, said it was evil because of the way there was dancing and the loud music. I mean, the lyrics, compared to what we hear today, are innocuous. Then language starts changing, slang and metaphors start changing. A lot of people always put it on hip-hop culture, but it's not just hip-hop culture. You know, like reggae music. When you hear people into reggae discussing music, let's say in the 70s when I grew up, yeah man, a wicked tune that, wicked. You hear that? They're saying it's a wicked tune. So they're changing the whole definition of the word. It's so good, it's wicked. Bad tune that. Run DMC adopted that. He's bad, meaning good.
The big bad wolf in your neighborhood, not bad, meaning bad, but meaning good.
You know, and then, oh man, yeah, that beat is sick, that rhyme is sick, that beat is ill. Huh? These are not good things to be. You know what I mean? But hip-hop culture, dancehall culture, youth culture isn't afraid to walk on that wild side. The acid house scene in the UK. Now, we all know they were taking ecstasy and acid trips and whatnot. And what I used to say, mental, this is mental, that rave is mental. Suppressing things is now taboo. It's now been flipped on its head 180. Nerissa Bowes-Lyon and Catherine Bowes-Lyon, first cousins of Queen Elizabeth, were secretly incarcerated in the Royal Earlswood Asylum for mental defectives in 1941. The scandal, uncovered after Nerissa's death in 1986, was subject of a 2011 documentary. Yeah, kept it hidden, keeping up appearances. That's just how they did things. First cousins. Catherine was 15 when she was committed, and it's said that she made unintelligible noises all the time and could say a few babyish words. They were wrongly believed to be dead the whole time. There's no record of any of the royals visiting them since the early 60s. There's videos on it, you can look it up. And now it's flipped around again. Prince Harry talking about a 20-year battle with mental health issues, panic attacks and rage attacks. Now he wants to open up about it and share it and tell everybody it's not taboo. Obviously, he cites the untimely death of his mother as the trigger. If you look at the evolution of rap lyrics from the block parties, they'd call out people or their crew who was in the crowd, and then it got to call and response lyrics. What's your zodiac sign? And then you shout back, say ho, ah. Yo, it's DJ so-and-so on the wheels of 1 and 2, and my name is this and that, and you're here doing this and that, and, you know. And then started evolving. Then the metaphors started developing. And then you got to go home and write something to top what you heard at a block party or what you heard on tape. And while it was just to keep the party rocking in its infancy, the message, Furious 5, broken glass everywhere, talking about the South Bronx and the state it was in at the time. That was a groundbreaking record. A little different from Rapper's Delight, which was just a party record. And you had Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions. They were bringing the Afrocentric viewpoint. That went hard, you know. And then you had NWA. Now, I know people are going to say, Just Ice and Schoolie D did gangster rap before that, but not on the scale NWA did it. Nowhere near. And then groups like Ghetto Boys. Whew. Look at the album cover. Bushwick Bill told his girl to shoot him in the eye, which I believe she did. When he was in hospital, the record label had the genius idea of getting Willie D and Scarface to walk Bushwick through the hospital in a gurney on the album We Can't Be Stopped. They had songs like The Mind of a Lunatic. The Mind of a Lunatic.
Paranoid, sitting in a deep sweat, thinking I gotta fuck somebody before the weekends. The sight of blood excites me. Shoot you in the head, sit down and watch you bleed to death.
Paranoid, sitting in a deep sweat. It was just like, whoa, yo, Mind of a Lunatic. I was never really on the acid house scene like that, but you know, I knew about it, and I was at a few of the parties and whatnot. That claimed, I won't say a lot of deaths, although there was a few through taking botched ecstasy and acid pills and whatnot. There was a few deaths, but a lot of kids got sectioned off. Them acid trips ain't no joke. You get a bad ecstasy, it's not a joke. But they were willing to take the risk. Like, it was like a cult movement. And I'd look at them dancing and like the expressions on their faces, and some of them weren't even high. I mean, but that music had a grip on them. Some of them didn't even take drugs, but the music had a grip on them. All right, so let's wrap it up. Are some celebrities using the mental health issue for popularity? It can get them column space in magazines and newspapers. It can help them bond with the audience. Look, I'm just like you. I had a breakdown. I'm no different to the regular person, as they attempt not to be some media-created plastic celebrity, whatever that is. Make them a little edgy. I had a breakdown. In some convoluted way. It's kind of rock star-esque, isn't it? Yeah, look, he had a breakdown, or she had a breakdown. Let's see how they come back from it, because, you know, the media like a comeback story. They like to see people crash and see if they can come back, or if they keep capitulating, they like that too.